My name is Amelia, and I'm 52 years old. For 23 years, I believed that keeping the peace meant swallowing my words, dimming my light, and pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. I thought that being a good wife meant sacrificing my voice at the altar of my husband's comfort. But there comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that silence isn't strength, it's surrender. And I was done surrendering. It was a humid Tuesday afternoon in Charlotte, North Carolina, when everything changed, the kind of day where the air feels thick enough to chew, and the cicadas sing their relentless summer song. I was standing in our kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd cooked thousands of meals, packed countless lunches, and cleaned up after family dinners that never seemed to include conversations about my dreams. The marble countertops gleamed under the afternoon sun, streaming through the windows, but all I could see was the email on my phone screen. "Congratulations, Amelia. We're thrilled to offer you the position of Regional Community Outreach Coordinator." My hands trembled as I read it again. After volunteering at the local women's shelter for 5 years, after completing my certification in nonprofit management online while everyone slept, after applying to this position 3 times over 2 years, I'd finally done it. At 52, I was being offered a paid position, doing something I was passionate about, helping women rebuild their lives. I heard David's car pull into the driveway. My heart raced as I rehearsed how I'd tell him. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe he'd see how important this was to me. Maybe he'd finally understand that I needed more than being David's wife and the girl's mom. He walked in, loosening his tie, his face already showing signs of irritation. David was a financial consultant, the kind of man who lived and breathed spreadsheets and profit margins. At 55, he'd built a comfortable life for us, and he never let me forget it. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I got some news today." He opened the refrigerator, grabbed a beer, and barely glanced at me. "Yeah? What is it?" "I was offered a job, the Regional Community Outreach Coordinator position at Hope Harbor. It's full-time, and it's exactly what I've been working toward." David's hand stopped midway to his mouth. He set the beer down slowly, his jaw tightening. "A full-time job? Amelia, we've talked about this." "No, you've talked about this. I've listened." His eyes narrowed. "Don't overreact. We don't need the money, and you've got responsibilities here. What about dinner? What about keeping the house running? What about being available when the girls need you?" I felt the familiar weight pressing down on my chest, the same weight I'd carried for over 2 decades. Our daughters, Emma and Sophie, were 21 and 19, both in college. They came home for holidays and summer breaks, but they had their own lives now. They didn't need me the way David insisted they did. "The girls are adults now," I said quietly. "They're building their own lives. Don't overreact," he repeated, his voice harder this time. "This is just some phase you're going through. You've been volunteering, fine. But a full-time job? That's going to disrupt everything we've built. Think about what you're risking." Something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like the first line in ice before it shatters completely. I looked at this man I'd loved since I was 29. This man who'd given me a comfortable home and 2 beautiful daughters, and I realized that he'd never once asked me what I wanted. He'd told me what I should want, what I should be grateful for, what I should accept. "I'm taking the job," I said. The silence that followed was deafening. "Then you need to think about what that means for this marriage," David said coldly. "Because I won't live like this, with a wife who's never home, who's too busy saving the world to take care of her own family." The ice shattered. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched my marriage dissolve like sugar in hot water. David became distant, barely speaking to me except to make pointed comments about the dishes in the sink or the laundry that wasn't done. He worked later hours, and when he was home, he acted as though I was a stranger living in his house. I called Emma and Sophie. I needed them to hear it from me before their father twisted the narrative. We met at a small cafe in downtown Charlotte, one of those places with exposed brick walls and the smell of fresh coffee that usually made me feel hopeful. That day, it felt like the setting for an execution. "Mom, you look exhausted," Emma said immediately, her dark eyes, so much like mine, filled with concern. Sophie reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "What's going on?" I told them everything. About the job offer, about their father's reaction, about the ultimatum that wasn't spoken aloud, but hung in the air of our house like smoke. "Wait," Emma said, her voice rising. "Dad is mad at you for getting a job?" A job you've been working toward for years? He thinks it's going to disrupt the family, I explained, hearing how weak it sounded even as I said it. What family? Sophie asked, and the bluntness of her question hit me like cold water. Emma and I are in college. We're barely home. What exactly would be disrupted? I started to cry. Not the quiet, dignified tears I'd trained myself to shed in private, but the ugly, heaving sobs of someone who'd been holding everything in for far too long. My daughters moved to my side of the booth, wrapping their arms around me, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, supported. "Mom," Emma said firmly, "you take that job. You take it, and you do amazing things because we've watched you volunteer at that shelter, and we've seen how alive you become when you talk about the work. Don't give up on yourself because Dad can't handle you having your own life." "But what about us?" Sophie finished. "Mom, we want you to be happy. We want you to chase your dreams. We're not kids anymore. We can handle whatever happens." I accepted the position at Hope Harbor the next day. David's reaction was predictable, cold fury masked as disappointment. He told me I was being selfish, that I was destroying our family, that I'd regret this decision. He moved into the guest bedroom and started looking at apartments. The divorce proceedings began that fall. The Charlotte trees turned brilliant shades of red and gold, and I signed papers that ended 23 years of marriage. David fought me on everything: the house, the savings, the retirement accounts. He wanted to punish me for choosing myself, and his lawyer made sure I understood that. But I had my daughters. Emma and Sophie came home every weekend that semester, helping me box up my life and move into a modest 2-bedroom apartment in the Plaza Midwood neighborhood. It was a third the size of the house I'd left, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every decorating choice, every moment of silence or noise, it all belonged to me. "This is actually kind of cool," Sophie said, hanging curtains in my bedroom. "It's like you're starting over." "I'm 52, I said, trying to laugh. "Isn't it too late to start over?" Emma looked at me seriously. "Mom, you're not starting over. You're starting. Period. You never got to start before." She was right. I'd gone from my parents' home to college to marriage, always defined by someone else's expectations. Now, for the first time in my life, I got to decide who Amelia was. The work at Hope Harbor was harder than I'd imagined, but also more rewarding. I coordinated outreach programs for women escaping domestic violence, connecting them with legal aid, housing assistance, job training, and counseling services. Every day, I met women who reminded me of myself, women who'd spent years making themselves smaller to keep the peace, women who'd finally found the courage to choose themselves. There was Maria, a 48-year-old woman who'd left her husband after he'd isolated her from her family for 15 years. There was Jessica, 35, with 3 kids and no high school diploma, determined to get her GED and build a better life. There was Patricia, 61, who'd stayed in an abusive marriage for 40 years because she thought she had nowhere else to go. I worked with each of them, building individualized plans, celebrating small victories, and sitting with them through setbacks. And in helping them rebuild their lives, I rebuilt my own. But the fear never fully left. Late at night, in my small apartment, I'd lie awake wondering if I'd made the right choice. The financial settlement from the divorce was fair but not generous, and I was living paycheck to paycheck for the first time in decades. I worried about retirement, about health insurance, about what would happen if I got sick or lost my job. I worried that David had been right, that I'd thrown away stability for a dream that might not sustain me. The panic attack started 6 months after the divorce was finalized. I'd be in the middle of a meeting or grocery shopping, and suddenly my chest would tighten, my vision would narrow, and I'd feel like I was drowning in air. The first time it happened at work, I locked myself in the bathroom and called Sophie. "Mom, breathe," she said calmly. "In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. You're okay. You're safe." "I'm not," I gasped. "What if I can't do this? What if I fail?" "Then you'll figure it out," she said. "But you won't fail. You're the strongest person I know." I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Rachel Morrison, a woman in her 60s who'd built her practice on helping women navigate major life transitions. She had gray hair she wore in a long braid and kind eyes that never judged. "What you're experiencing is completely normal," she told me during our 3rd session. "You've spent over 2 decades in a situation where your value was tied to how well you served others. Now, You're learning to value yourself independently, and that's terrifying. I thought I'd feel free, I admitted. Instead, I just feel scared all the time. Freedom and fear often look the same at first, Dr. Morrison said. But you're doing the work. You're showing up for yourself every day. That takes extraordinary courage. Slowly, with therapy and the unwavering support of my daughters, the panic attacks became less frequent. I developed coping strategies, morning walks around Freedom Park, journaling before bed, a meditation practice that I'd once thought was silly, but now found essential. I joined a women's book club in my neighborhood and made friends who knew me as Amelia, not as David's ex-wife. Work became my anchor. After 18 months at Hope Harbor, I proposed a new initiative, a mentorship program pairing women in our shelters with successful professional women in the community who'd overcome similar challenges. I wrote the grant proposal myself, staying up late for weeks to perfect every detail. When the grant was approved for $150,000, my supervisor, Patricia Chen, called me into her office. "Amelia, this is extraordinary work," she said. "I want you to lead this program, and I'm promoting you to Director of Women's Programs." I cried right there in her office, overwhelmed by the validation that I was good at this, that I'd made the right choice, that starting over at 52 wasn't too late. It was exactly on time. The mentorship program launched the following spring. We matched 20 women from our shelters with professional mentors who provided guidance, networking opportunities, and friendship. I watched these women transform. Maria got her real estate license and sold her first home. Jessica earned her GED and enrolled in community college. Patricia, at 62, started a small catering business that specialized in traditional Puerto Rican food. But the real transformation was in me. I learned to trust my instincts, to speak up in meetings without apologizing, to take up space without feeling guilty. I learned that my worth wasn't tied to how well I served others, but to how authentically I showed up as myself. I learned that failure wasn't falling down. It was refusing to get back up. 3 years after I'd walked away from my marriage, Emma graduated from UNC Chapel Hill with a degree in social work. The graduation ceremony was held outdoors on a beautiful May afternoon, the campus alive with the energy of accomplishment and new beginnings. I sat in the audience, bursting with pride, watching my daughter cross the stage to receive her diploma. After the ceremony, as families gathered for photos, I spotted David. He was there with his girlfriend, a woman at least 15 years younger than him. But that wasn't what caught my attention. It was the way he was looking at me, not with anger or resentment, but with something that looked almost like regret. Emma ran up to me, diploma in hand, and threw her arms around my neck. "Mom, I did it." "You did, baby. I'm so proud of you." Sophie was right behind her, camera in hand, documenting everything. "Get together. I need pictures of my 2 favorite graduates." "What do you mean 2? I asked. Emma grinned. "You're graduating too, Mom. From survival mode to actually living. That's worth celebrating." David approached us hesitantly. "Amelia, can I talk to you for a minute?" Emma and Sophie exchanged glances but stepped away, giving us space. "Congratulations on Emma's graduation," I said politely. "Thank you." He shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "I heard about your promotion, Director of Women's Programs. That's impressive. Thank you." He looked at me for a long moment. "You look good, happy, different." "I am different. I saw an article about your mentorship program in the Charlotte Observer," he continued. "It said you've helped over 50 women rebuild their lives. I didn't realize how important this work was to you." I felt a surge of old anger mixed with something sadder. Pity, maybe. "David, you never asked." He nodded slowly. "I know. I thought I was protecting our family, protecting what we'd built, but I was really just protecting my comfort. I didn't want things to change." "Everything changes," I said. "The question is whether we change with it or get left behind." "I got left behind," he admitted. "The girls barely talk to me. They're polite, but distant. They look at you like you hung the moon, and they look at me like I don't know, a stranger. That's not my doing, David. That's the consequence of your choices." "I know." He paused. "I'm sorry for all of it, for not supporting you, for making you feel like you had to choose between your dreams and our marriage, for not seeing you." It was the apology I'd needed 3 years ago. Now it felt like something belonging to a different life, a different version of me who'd needed his validation to feel whole. "I appreciate you saying that," I said, "but I don't need your apology to move forward. I've already moved forward." He nodded, understanding the finality in my words. "You're really soaring, aren't you?" "I'm trying." Emma and Sophie returned, and the conversation ended. We took family photos. The girls insisted that David and I both be in them, a gesture of their grace and maturity. But I knew that the family we'd once been was gone, replaced by something more honest, if more fractured. That night, back in my apartment, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my small balcony, watching the lights of Charlotte twinkle in the distance. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. "So proud of you, Mom. You're living proof that it's never too late to choose yourself. Love you, infinity." I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago, standing in that kitchen, reading that job offer with trembling hands. I thought about how terrified I'd been, how close I'd come to saying no, to keeping the peace, to staying small. And I thought about the woman I was now, imperfect, still figuring things out, still battling anxiety and doubt, but fundamentally changed. I'd walked away with my daughters by my side, and I'd faced my deepest fear that I wasn't enough on my own. And I'd discovered that not only was I enough, I was more than I'd ever imagined I could be. The mentorship program continued to grow. By the end of the 4th year, we'd served over 100 women, and our success rate, measured by women maintaining stable housing and employment after leaving our program, was over 80%. We were featured in regional and national publications, and I was invited to speak at conferences about innovative approaches to supporting women in crisis. At 56, I stood on a stage at a national nonprofit convention in Denver, Colorado, addressing an audience of over 500 people. I told them about Hope Harbor, about our programs, about the women whose lives had been transformed. But I also told them my story, about being 52 and divorced, about choosing myself when everyone said I was being selfish, about the fear and the doubt and the panic attacks and the slow, hard work of rebuilding. "We tell women that it's never too late to start over," I said, my voice steady and clear. "But I prefer to say it's never too late to start, because for many of us, we never got the chance to truly begin. We were always living for someone else, being who someone else needed us to be. And when we finally choose ourselves, it's not starting over, it's starting, period. It's the beginning of the life we were always meant to live." The audience stood and applauded, and I felt tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness or fear, but tears of arrival. I'd arrived at the life I was meant to live. Emma and Sophie were both in the audience, having flown out to surprise me. Afterward, they rushed the stage, and we stood together, 3 women who'd walked through fire and come out stronger. "You did it, Mom," Emma said. "You really did it." "We did it," I corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you two." Sophie shook her head. "You had it in you all along. We just reminded you." Later that evening, alone in my hotel room, I pulled out my journal, a practice Dr. Morrison had encouraged years ago that had become essential. I wrote about the day, about the speech, about the feeling of standing on that stage and owning my story. And then I wrote something I'd never written before. "I am proud of myself." 4 simple words that represented a revolution. Back in Charlotte, life continued its steady rhythm. I adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy terrier mix named Dolly, who had as much anxiety as I once did. We worked through it together, 2 survivors learning to trust the world again. I took salsa dancing classes and discovered I was terrible at it, but loved it anyway. I started dating, tentatively at first, and learned that intimacy looked different at 56 than it had at 29. It was slower, deeper, more honest. I didn't need someone to complete me. I was already complete, but I was open to someone complimenting me, sharing the life I'd built with such care and courage. On the 5th anniversary of starting my job at Hope Harbor, Patricia Chen retired, and the board of directors offered me her position, executive director of the entire organization. It was a massive responsibility, overseeing all programs, fundraising, staff management, and strategic planning. It was also terrifying. I called Emma and Sophie for advice. "What's the worst that could happen?" Sophie asked. "I could fail. I could let everyone down. I could prove that I was in over my head all along." "Okay," Emma said. "And what's the best that could happen?" "I could succeed. I could help even more women. I could build something meaningful that lasts beyond me. So you have two possibilities, Emma said. Both involve risk, but only one involves growth. What did you tell those women at the conference? It's never too late to start. I took the position. At 57, I became the executive director of Hope Harbor, leading an organization with 43 employees and an annual budget of over $3 million. It was the hardest, most rewarding work I'd ever done. And through it all, I remembered that Tuesday afternoon in Charlotte, standing in my kitchen, reading that email with trembling hands. I remembered David's words, "Don't overreact." Words meant to keep me small, to keep me in my place, to keep me from growing into who I was meant to be. But I did react. I reacted by choosing myself, by walking away with my daughters by my side, by facing my fears head on, by building a life that was mine. And years later, when David watched me soar, it wasn't because I needed him to witness my success. It was simply the natural consequence of a woman who'd finally started living. Now, when women come into Hope Harbor, scared and uncertain about starting over, I tell them my story. Not to say it was easy, it wasn't. Not to say it wasn't terrifying, it was. But to say that on the other side of that fear is a life worth living, a self worth knowing, a future worth fighting for. Because it's never too late to start. It's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to soar. And that's exactly what I did.